true to what you said on paper.
I wish that I could freely dream.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to At the Round Table with Mamleo. We want to thank our sponsors, Guaranteed Rate Mortgage Company. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 781-342-0252. Guaranteed Mortgage is located at 75 State Street in downtown Boston, Mass. Guaranteed Rate Mortgage Company, guaranteed to exceed your expectations. Again, hearty good morning to you folks. I'm Larry Ellison, your host here. Dr. Bradley is off today. He may be calling in, but he is not in the studio today. I am joined by our engineer, valiant producer, Pastor Hobbs, who is over there valiantly getting himself ready for this. So I want to say good morning to him. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And before we go on, I just want to offer my sincere condolences to you and your family on the loss of your dad. I know that.
Thank you, sir.
You're a trooper being here this morning. So thank you.
To God be
Appreciate you and love you, my brother.
Thank you, sir. Likewise.
I appreciate that. Again, we're going to get through this. We're going to muster through. I've been in that position, and you have our love. You have our support.
Appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
And I guess I know you usually do it, so if you wouldn't mind, a prayer and a special prayer there for you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Father God, we do bless you. We honor you. We reverence you. We thank you for your grace, for your mercy, for being all powerful and a very present help in our time of need. And Father, we do ask you to bless this day, bless this broadcast, bless all that's said and done. And we do ask you to bless the Hobbs family in a special way. God, be with my mom and my siblings and the family. Just provide as only you can as we celebrate the life of my father going home to be with you. In Jesus' name. Amen.
A big amen to that. Yes, sir. Appreciate you, brother. I want to say, again, you're listening to At the Round Table with Mamley. I'm your host, Larry Ellison. Like I said, Dr. Bradley is off today. Said, again, our sponsor, Cora Holbrook, will be in studio live this morning, April 1st. Believe it or not, we are into the month of April. She's going to be in on some mortgage and foreclosure issues. So you want to stay tuned for that. If you're looking to get a mortgage, or if you're going through some type of foreclosure process or anything like that, if you're behind, she has some help. Help is on the way. Help is on the way this morning. So, like I said, we are going to definitely try and enlighten folks with that. I want to say hearty good morning to Mr. and Mrs. Harry Scales, avid listeners, and actually some folks out there when I need information and instantaneously, Brother Harry is always sending me that information. So I want to say a hearty good morning to him as well, him and the missus as well. I want to say good morning to Brother Jamal Crawford out there. I know he's an avid listener as well. Good morning to Brother Pierre Rhodes, who listens to the broadcast. I tell you, running to people all the time. They're like, hey, we listen to your show. I recognize you and Dr. Bradley's voice when they see you. So I said good morning to those folks as well. And yes, back to Indiana. Good morning, Brother Bridgeforth down in there. We got to do a live show from Indiana because we can't get the brother in here. We're going to have to go down and visit him down in Indiana there. That's the kind of song that gets you woke up this morning, early this morning. It's actually, the weather's changed. It's a little nicer out today than it was the past few days. A little chilly out there. So hope it's a little warmer down there. Say good morning, Brother Bridgeforth down in Indiana. Folks, a lot going on in the world. If you've been sleeping or under a rock, you know that the former president, Donald Trump, has been indicted for the first time for a lot of his mischief. And this was probably one of many. And, we don't have kings in this country. And it's really, in my opinion, appalling. It's someone who is in the law enforcement profession, someone who puts his life on the line, as many others do, and would be held accountable in the same way and should be held accountable in the same way. To hear a lot of our somewhat leaders out there defending what they don't even know is in the indictment. They don't even know what crime has been committed, but it's a political witch hunt. It's this, it's that. How about waiting for the process? And the irony is that some of these same people, after the insurrection that Donald Trump mounted on January 6th, Lindsey Graham, who the other day was on there crying, saying send more money to Donald Trump, was saying he was through with Donald Trump, the senator from South Carolina. He was through with Donald Trump, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back again for him, right? So you can believe anything he says. Again, that was it. He was done with Donald Trump. Count me out, he said. Count me out. I'm done. This is it. And then he's on the news the other night. Donald, this is a witch hunt. Donald Trump, please send him money. And he's sitting there with the fake tears rolling down his face. Give me a break, folks. Give me a break. How can I believe anything, right? And yet, where is this outrage when people, black people in particular, have been accused of a crime, haven't been convicted, and they'll weigh in and say, yeah, they're guilty. Just the accusation is enough. They're guilty. So this double standard, I think it just shows in this country how it works. We've had politicians arrested. Like I said, we don't have kings in this country. Donald Trump as a former president, there were some opportunities afforded him that normal people don't when he was a sitting president. And you would think after the many instances, after the Ukraine incident, after the insurrection, and the list goes on and on and on and on, that as the congressman from California had said, that Donald Trump is only emboldened by this behavior. If you don't stop him, he will continue. He will go out of control. And yes, he was right. He was so right when he talked about Donald Trump and his behavior. If that he wasn't impeached in the first time, he was only emboldened. And if you hear him now when he's out there on the campaign trail, he is saying he is your retribution. He is their retribution, that he is not running. One, he thought running for president was going to protect him from these lawsuits because he was a candidate. Now he's going to try and say, the only reason they're doing this is because I'm running for president. They're doing it because it's alleged that you're committing crimes. And we don't have kings in this country or queens. So you should be held accountable just like anyone else if these allegations were made against them. Al Gore was held accountable. He was found not guilty in the court and he was able to move on. It's campaign finances. So this is not something that's unusual. And because you're the president, you don't get a pass. And like I said, Donald Trump, in my opinion, is a habitual offender. He disgraces any office. He disgraces even being a business person, with his behavior. That you have to ask yourself, folks, is it everyone else or maybe Donald Trump that his chief financial officer is in jail? His attorney is in jail. Most attorneys that represent him either get disbarred or they're in some criminal. Rudy Giuliani comes to mind, are under some criminal investigation. Bill Barr was running a criminal enterprise, in my opinion, out of the Attorney General's office. So is it everyone else? And then what's the common theme, the common connection with all these people? Like they said, that if you're messing with Donald Trump, you're gonna get in trouble. You're going to have some issues. They said the MAGA stands for make attorneys get attorneys. That's what MAGA stands for. Make attorneys get attorneys. That's, the MAGA stands for on Donald Trump's hat. If you want to be, go ahead. Go ahead. So if you have you want to weigh in on this, is this a fair system, criminal justice system that we have in this country? I don't believe so. And I work in it. I see it. I'm not naive, but it doesn't work. And if you're the former president, if you're the current president, if you're committing a criminal enterprise, if you want to violate the law, you don't get to, because there are privileges that the president does have afforded to them. But it doesn't mean you get to break the law. It doesn't mean you get to continue. And actually, he's profiting from it. He is preying on those weak and vulnerable and having them who just listen to one source to get their information, that he is a victim. He claims he's a multi-billionaire, but he's a victim. He is taking money from the vulnerable, but he's a victim. 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. What say you, folks? Do we have a two-tiered system here? I think it's even more than two-tier. That certain people. We just had a former Boston police officer who was arrested the other day, alleging that he was part of the insurrection, that he assaulted police officers and others in our nation's capital on January 6th on Donald Trump's behalf. He was arrested, right? He's not getting a pass. He's being held accountable in the criminal justice system. His outcome has not been decided yet, but he is being brought to justice for his behavior, his alleged behavior during that day. So why doesn't he get a pass? Because he's not the former president? And I'm not saying he should get a pass. But my point to being here is that there are people who are sitting in jail. As a matter of fact, some of Donald Trump's entourage's Congress people went there playing as martyrs in this system. You know, Donald Trump last week stood in front of holding his hand over his heart. He finally found which one was right. Unlike with the Bible, and playing them singing the national anthem as if they're heroes, the prisoners of war. Come on, folks, we can do better than that. I know. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the round table. Help me out here.
Good morning. How you doing, brother Jamal? Caller.
Good morning, brother Jamal. How are you, sir?
Good. Well, I woke up, as usual, and I'm looking at the news, and I've been up all night looking at news and everything. So, on the Trump thing, what's going to be really interesting is, the circus that I believe he intends to generate, and one of our favorite people in the world was on CNN giving some advice. Former Commissioner Ed Davis,
okay,
and he was giving his assessment on the security and the fact that how Secret Service, because Donald Trump still gets protection, and how Secret Service is going to have to navigate this. And two, Trump, because he's so obstinate, he doesn't necessarily listen to some of the security recommendations that they might provide. You see what I mean?
Right.
He wants people to see him in handcuffs. He wants to do the perp walk because it, gets him more attention,
more money.
And they're trying, exactly. And so they're trying to mitigate all that. But I mean, can you imagine Secret Service for a president? He could wake up at 1 a.m. and say, "I want Waffle House," and you can't say, "Sir, we don't think that's a good idea." I want Waffle House,
right?
And you have to just go and protect him,
right?
Because he's not under captivity.
Well,
he's just under protection.
I think a perfect example of that, Jamal, was during the testimony. The young lady there that used to work for, I believe it was Mike Pence, when she said that the Secret Service said it wasn't advisable for him to go down there to the lips, right? Because there were people down there who had weapons, and he didn't want them to go through the magnetometers, right? Because that detects weapons. And he said, they're not here to hurt me, right? So he didn't care that they may have used these weapons on other, but that, you're right. So that's your point, is that the Secret Service said, well, even with that, we're not going to take that risk. But because he wanted that notoriety, he wanted that attention, he was willing to take it as if it was some TV show.
Right. And with all this paperwork and suits he's getting served, the one thing I'm surprised who hasn't served him is Melania.
Well, where's she gonna go? Somebody who really, it's a marriage of convenience, in my opinion. I don't know what goes on.
Wherever she goes, she's gonna get away from him, and she's gonna take half his money, and she better do it quick while he's still got some money left.
Well, you're right, but I think in most cases Donald Trump had those, because I know it's recognized in a lot of states, and even his other wives, he has an ironclad prenup that he's had them all sign. So I don't think she'd get half. I think there's a set amount that even the other ones that he was married.
But maybe she could at least raise money on a GoFundMe just on pity.
Yeah, I don't think she's well liked. But I mean, even his daughter, Bianca, her statement was not he's innocent. She said, she loved her father and she's praying for this country. I mean, I think that was a very measured statement. She wasn't weighing in. And this is his daughter. Didn't say, hey, my dad is innocent. I've been around him. I know he wouldn't do it. She didn't even go as far as folks who haven't seen this indictment going.
She's actually, I think, the smartest out of the bunch.
That's why she didn't go. She's like, I'm not signing up for this again. Yeah.
And as her father says, and the hardest.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this, though, too, because speaking about money, I need to borrow about $150,000 from you. Because I read the paper today, and I see that the officers just got 40 million.
Well, I don't know if you heard me mention that earlier. That was one of the lawsuits that I brought during my time as president of Mamleo, and I had to sign a non-disclosure that I couldn't talk about it. And now that it's in the public domain, I can speak to it. So it was a lawsuit that I filed with our attorneys from Licton and Associates back in 2009. We challenged the fairness and the accuracy of the statewide promotional exams here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And recently, a judge ruled in the state courts that not only was it this exam, but for the past 50 years, these exams hadn't really very little, if anything, to do with what you were asking people to test for. And that on its merits, it was discriminatory. It was a rote memorization. And if you saw one of these, you'd be like, I just said, take this test. And then you tell me what it's designed for. You'd be like, I don't know. What am I taking? What is it that the person is going to be doing once I test this out? Because I'm not even sure if I told you it was to become a supervisor as in a police department, you'd be like, what? So that's why they send you to the police academy for 6 weeks once you are designated, have passed this test, and you're in that range to be promoted to supervisor. So yeah, it's been a long time coming. It's just like the racist and discriminatory drug hair test, which we were able to get disbanded. And there was also a lawsuit that I brought on behalf for the lieutenants, from the sergeant to lieutenants portion, in which in the federal courts they agreed to as well that test was discriminatory. You see a pattern here, Jamal?
Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna get to it.
Yeah.
So, but first I want to ask this question. Mm-hmm. Now, with this is just monetary, right? This is just the court saying it's bad. These people have been aggrieved, and here's the payment for that grievance. Okay,
but go ahead.
But I was going to say, does it have any things now where it strikes down that test, or now people have to reconfigure the
yes,
civil service?
That is part of it as well. And if you recall, most recently, once this decision was rendered back in the state court back in November, and then there was a fire exam that was scheduled to take place shortly after that. And it was because of this, because it is designed in the same way. So yes, there will be definitely retooling that as part of this agreement as well. And all the particulars haven't been worked out. But so this is a game changer.
So who does, right now? What is it? There's a civil service board, isn't there?
There's a civil service exam, but and most people aren't.
No, aware. I mean who? I'm talking about who's in charge of that. Isn't there a civil service board?
Well, civil service administers the test. So
that's what I mean.
Right. So what happens is this, and the great questions you're asking, is that when a city is about to, usually it's every 2 to 3 years, the city will say, okay, we want to call for a test. So then they will formulate their test. Some people or some folks will, the civil service administers a test every 2 years statewide. So you can choose to participate in just that exam, or you can structure your own, and then you submit it to civil service, and they evaluate it, and they say, okay, this is fine, we'll sign off on it. And then they will administer the test. But you will have a component like Boston. So even if they participate in the civil service exam, they will have their own component. So there might be a statewide test, and it might be, say, 60 questions from that, and then there's 40 questions that Boston has designed particular to our laws, our rules, and things of that nature. That's not uncommon.
What I'm trying to find out, and I'm actually on the website now, and it says nothing. Mm-hmm. So normally when you have these departments in Massachusetts, right, mm-hmm. there's a director of, or a chief of, or maybe a board, a committee, or something. So I'm trying to see the governing structure of the civil service people, because now if they're going to have to retool it, we probably don't want the same people who've been screwing it up all these years to be the ones to reconfigure it. We probably want to bring in a new committee, and then too, these people? Right, are these people educators? Do these people clearly they're not versed in diversity, equity, and inclusion? So it seems that we're going to have to bring in, Massachusetts loves consultants, somebody who's going to come in to help reconfigure the test to make sure that it maximizes fairness and job performance.
Right. Well, the irony is that most cities and towns other than like Boston, have opted out of civil service.
Right.
They don't use them because of that, right? The state police, they don't use them because they're constantly being sued and successfully being sued. Boston, again, has always been this diehard. Go ahead, we have plenty of money. We'll lose. We'll pay off the people, and they know on average these lawsuits take time, right? Like I said, I filed this when I was president. I became president of Mamley in 2008, and shortly after that, in 2009, I was looking at all this, and I'm like, I'm tired of sitting down with these folks trying to get them to do the right thing. They know this hair test, these exams are discriminatory. This disciplinary action is discriminatory. I'm not going to negotiate. We can still converse, but I got the lawyers on board. Matter of fact, the lawyer that Harold Lichten, who I went, because he had filed a lawsuit. In matter of fact, he was the one that, believe it or not, got the exam changed and got it shot down with us. And he was the lead attorney for the Superior Officers Federation of the Boston Police, right? And was actually fighting against us. And I sat down and showed him the damages that he had caused with this. And a week later, to his credit, he resigned from being their attorney, and he took the case on for us because he knew.
Wow.
Right.
That's a great story. That's a great story. Somebody needs to Globe, somebody needs to do artists. That's a great story.
Yeah. And so
now,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so let me ask you this as well. Because back when, the Baltimore police screwed up there with Freddie Gray, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gave him the rough ride, right?
Mm-hmm.
The activists there who were going after Baltimore police, which we often get compared to because, we're similar in size,
Yeah.
Although the demographics are very different. But yeah, so the activists were pointing out the fact that the Baltimore police, one of the reasons they were saying that they were horrible is they just were talking about how much that they had cost the taxpayers of Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, they were saying the Baltimore police has cost the taxpayers of Baltimore $40 million.
Mm-hmm.
My brain clicked. I was like, man, I can get to $40 million from the Boston police with just a couple of suits.
Exactly. Well, just think about the drug test alone. And this is what, troubled me, honestly, with our current mayor, Mayor Wu. I went to her at my time as president of Mamley, and these lawsuits were still pending. And she was president of the council, as well as Andrea Campbell, who was president of the council, and said, look, you guys are funding discrimination with city taxpayers' money. And then every time they would lose, these appeals would get dragged out, and they could have stopped it, but chose not to.
Right. And then it ends up costing money.
It costs money in defending these lawsuits, but then it also costs money on the payout of these lawsuits. But more importantly, it costs money in people's lives, right? I was a plaintiff in a suit. Just think about, my time. I've been there almost 37 years. That all of these tests I've taken had the same thing, and I passed all of them. But there was always an element in there that people couldn't get over. And my thing is that they always say, you plant the tree today and you may not harvest any of the fruit. And I'm okay with that, because hopefully the people that replace me will not have to fight this fight. There will be an exam in place, because when I look at the residency and the people who actually might want to become police officers here in the city of Boston, in across the Commonwealth, Jamal, where are they going to come from? They're supposed to come from the community. They're supposed to come from our community, right? And we look at how the BPS system in the charter schools, for the most part now, are functioning. This is where our kids, and we know that close to 90% of the kids in those schools are black and brown. If they can't even read to get out of high school, how are they going to even read to get in the entry level, let alone the upward trajectory based on these previous exams that were being administered, right? And on the other side, here's the dirty little secret. A lot of the officers not of color, whose families were on the job in a lot of instances, grew up outside of the city, went to very good schools, and then when a year before the test is announced, they get to move back in with a relative or they get an apartment, and now they take a test fully prepared to do so.
Right.
Because their education was not in the Boston public school system, but they meet the requirement of now being a Boston resident, right? Where someone who's been stuck in this system, who didn't have that choice, and attending Boston public schools has taken a test. Who do you think is going to fare better?
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, this is when, you and I have had very in-depth, these are some of the things that, I just stopped having the conversations with them and just started, I realized it's a waste of time, right? Because the only movement has been when lawsuits. This is what I learned from Billy Celestin. Now, when I came on, there was a consent decree that had been filed by these folks that a lot of other officers benefited from, including our current commissioner and our former commissioner, they benefited from the consent decree because of the discrimination, and it was a set aside. They would not have been promoted in most instances. A lot of them would not have been promoted and once that consent decree expired, we saw again the decline in officers of color in supervisory positions. Currently, right now in the city of Boston, there is not one black captain commanding any district station. There are only 2 that could be in that position out of about 30 captains in the police department. There are no women commanding any area station in the city of Boston. That's an easy fix. They could, and the Mayor Wu had committed to, and she has now walked back from, putting deputy superintendents, which Billy Celestin was a perfect role model for that, in my opinion. I'm not talking about his personal behavior, but as a boss, as someone who is in touch with the community, that can be put back in there. What they took was a recommendation from a St. Clair's report after the Charles Stewart killed his wife and unborn child and then blamed it on a black man. They recommended not promoting anyone. This was a recommendation, anyone below the rank of lieutenant to the command staff, which is the deputies and superintendents. Now, on its face, Jamal, at the time that this recommendation was in place, we only had 1 black sergeant in the whole Boston Police Department. So even he was not eligible to be promoted to the command staff on a recommendation. And we've been living with this. So we don't get quality. We get quality. We get quantity in some instances, but not the quality that we should. Because when you look at accomplishments and what is taken and changed this place, it's this type of work that has changed the Boston Police Department. And you do pay a price, and I've paid it, but it's one, like I said, that they're paying the price today, $40 million.
Yeah, and I mean, and now, so when did you get word that it was done and whatever?
Well, I had to sign an NDA, so I knew several. It's been going back and forth. The judge ruled that this test was discriminatory. His ruling came out in November, and then he set mid-March for the remedy for this. And so our attorneys have been going back and forth with the state, because this was against the state. We took on everybody, because that was our problem, and you identified it quite well, is that civil service always tried to hide that they were not our employers. And we're like, wait a minute, you administer the test. If I have an appeal, it goes to you, not to my employer. But if it goes to my employer, it goes to you. You have the final say in this. In a just way, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say that you have such an impact on these folks' lives and then say you're not their employer, because we don't work for civil service. So that has finally been decided. So the answer to your question is that we've been going back and forth for the last couple of weeks, and finally came with both sides could live with. And to the credit of the new governor, Healy, who was the AG at the time, because once this decision was decided in November, Maura Healy, who's now the current governor, was the AG. She could have appealed it. And even when Andrea Campbell came in and took over, it was on her desk, and they had the time. She could have appealed it as well. And they both decided enough of this was enough, and they both signed off on, we're going to settle this. And with these changes.
Well, I asked when the news basically broke, because it being in the paper here, and interestingly enough, I don't see anything in the Globe. I just see the Herald. And it came out today, this morning. And traditionally, the Friday paper and the Saturday paper are the least read. So, I hope this story gets out. I know I've already posted it on my Facebook because this is a huge story.
It is huge, and it was supposed to come next week. So I was shocked yesterday when it came out because as late as Thursday we were still going back and forth with this, and I was told that it most likely would be announced next week. And then I got a call last night because the document from the court had been released, and I think that's what it wasn't as the court had released their document, and it was on public record then, and then the media picked it up and the phone calls started coming. Because even our current president was not aware of because I still chair the legal committee for the MAMLIO, the Minority Police Association. So I was dealing with the negotiations, and then I wasn't even able to disclose to him. So I had to update him very quickly back and forth last night so he could prepare himself, and he did well in his comments. And he's got numerous calls from the media since that. And this is huge. But this is the work. This is saying, taking on Goliath, right? They can be, and the sad part is the taxpayers still don't look at this as it's really them that pay for this. And yet people who are creating these problems, and Ed Davis could have done something with this. Willie Gross could have done something with this. Even our current commissioner, there are things could be done. And was around during that time. And you have to be honest and assess the people who are in leadership who had an easier task than I did, Jamal, being a detective, the president of MAMLIO, taking these folks on, and the people who could have looked at the same issues I looked at and said, this is not right. And they said it privately, this is not right. Well, what are you going to do? Well, nothing I can do. That's not true, because clearly in these instances, like I said, these suits that I brought, things were done. You just didn't have the will to do it. They were done. And I'm not patting myself on the back, but the truth is the truth.
Yeah, I mean, well, as they say, nothing beats a fail but a try.
Exactly.
And and if you don't even make an attempt, I used to tell my daughter all the time, if you do something might happen.
Yeah.
But if you do nothing,
yeah,
nothing will happen.
Right. In a perfect example of that, Jamal, I inherited it. It had started before my time. The discriminatory drug test. I inherited that from my predecessor. So it had been going on, and then I had it for another 8-9 years before we were able to get some resolution. We kept winning. They kept appealing. It's the same thing with these. Every time we would win, they would appeal.
Right, and they spent several more $1 million
exactly.
to, just no,
right.
and just be, obstinate.
Yeah.
And that cost the city more millions in legal fees to fight something that they knew was wrong from the jump.
Look, the only thing I would disagree with when you say it costs the city, it costs the taxpayers. That's how I always frame it.
Right,
No, I'm saying because that's how it's because I think when people think that, they think it doesn't affect them, right? Oh, the city had to pay this. The state. No, this is taxpayer money that could go to other things. And knowing it's wrong, and you're defending discrimination with taxpayer funding, that's wrong. That's wrong. And when you're constantly losing, and your only thing is that I'm not going to let those folks beat us. That's really what the language was in it coming down to. And it's ironic because I was looking at a testimony in which I had forgot that I had actually gotten a T-shirt printed up with the Commissioner Evans's comments, and I'll read it to you because I forgot I got it. It said this was from a lawsuit that MAMLIO had filed back in 2021, and this is the quote from BPD Commissioner Evans at the time. He said,
is that the one where he said, unfortunately?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay,
So,
go ahead.
So it says, when he was asked a question about minority police supervisors, he says, and this is his quote, "I have to bring people up, but do I like this system?" And then he catches himself. Well, unfortunately, this has become a minority majority city. We have to reflect the community that we represent. But that's unfortunately in today's modern policing, one of the things the community wants is for the police department to reflect diversity of the people they serve.
Yeah.
Right?
Unfortunately.
Right, unfortunately. Basically, our existence, right, repulses him. Unfortunately. This is the policeman, right? This is an open court. And I guess I have to commend him because when you raise your hand to tell the truth, right, he told the truth.
And sometimes, too, it's funny because some of these people are, they're not, rocket scientists.
No.
So they have an inability to really lie well. So if questioned under the right circumstances, you won't, they can't help but tell you what's really underneath.
Right.
So it's gonna come out. I don't know if you have that other quote there, what he said about Willie.
I don't have it on the T-shirt, but I know where he was asked about whether or not, and I'm paraphrasing, he was asked about his relationship with Willie Gross, who at the time was the second in command, and he described him in not so flattering terms. He was asked, did he know whether he went to school education-wise? He said no. Asked, basically, and he said that the guy underneath him was his the guy that he went to when he had issues, and Willie was his community.
Field operation.
Right, yeah.
Willie's just our community guy. He goes to the meetings, and the people, they like him.
Right, exactly. Right. It wasn't my pick, and so I'm stuck with him, because of politics, basically. But he's not someone
which is also, this is why I kind of do a lot of the stuff that I do, because I don't like all this secretiveness. Yeah. Right? So, look, based on our relationship, now, we cool, we talk, offline, call the radio, we do the food thing.
Yeah.
Now, if you heard there's a video that emerges, and I'm like, yeah, that Larry guy, man, I don't like him, man. This guy, that would break your heart.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like, wow.
Right.
I thought that guy was my buddy.
Right.
So it shows that they're smiling on television and whatnot, talking about diversity and and go community and all that. Right. But really, when they got to swear under oath,
right,
and that truth comes out,
yeah,
I never liked the guy.
Right.
If it was up to me, he wouldn't be around.
Right. Right. But that's why they find people like us, right, who have been, looking at things from a lens of truth and factual, right? Because these things that they were trying to say publicly, that there was nothing to this, and it's like with this whole thing with Trump's folks. Well, when you have a narrative and you can put it out there, but then when you're asked to defend it in the court of law, and when the facts don't support it, that's where they run into trouble.
Exactly, because this ain't Twitter. You can create your own narrative on Twitter, but that don't work in court.
Exactly. You
got to have facts. You got to withstand cross-examination.
Exactly. Right.
You got to,
right.
Please.
Exactly. But that's not what happens. That's not what happens. What happens is that now they get caught, and now they're saying the administration has changed. It wasn't me that did it, because think about it. This has gone on for almost 10 years. Just this one lawsuit. This is one of the many. There's been 3 police commissioners since then. So all of them saying is that don't blame me. But then you go full speed ahead and continue the disparate treatment. You continue to hammer it out. You don't get a pass. When I sit down and I explain to you, and our lawyers explain to you, what you're doing is wrong. It's illegal. Now you have it in front of an independent body, a judges, which are impartial, and they're saying, wait a minute. The facts don't support what you're saying. You have a hair test that is discriminatory. As a matter of fact, the federal government stopped using it because of that reason. You have a testing process that is discriminatory, and people don't use it in that way. That's why a lot of police departments across the state have opted out of civil service, because they can't keep getting sued. Well, we're going to go with it because it's in the court. Well, I thought you said you were looking to move forward, move past it. So once you embrace it and you say, hey, I'm going to take this on, I own it, then you own all the responsibilities. You own all of the headaches that come with it as well.
And so what do they do now instead of the hair? It's a urine test or a blood
exactly,
test?
Right, which everyone can provide mostly, right? I mean, if I told one day I was down there for my drug hair test, and I came in because they're telling you months ahead of time that you have to start trying to grow hair. I'm like, that's a multi-billion-dollar industry. If I could grow hair, I wouldn't be doing this work, right? Because I know I could get rich, right? Just coming up with a way to grow hair. Well, come back in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, all I have is razor bumps on my head and my face, and people asking me, is everything okay? Because I look like one of the folks down from Mass and Cass. Everything all right? Because they never see me in this disheveled manner, right? And then, so come back in 2 more weeks. Nothing is changing. But most people have a bodily function that they go to the bathroom daily, multiple times a day. Everyone pretty much can perform the same way. Everyone doesn't grow hair in the same manner. So that in itself, and the fact that the federal government wouldn't even stop using that testing, because they felt that it was discriminatory. And yet we always find what puts some folks at a disadvantage, and we say, I'll have 3 of those. I'll take 3 of those. This discriminates against, I saw people's lives being ruined. And even with that case, there's money for our black officers who still have not been paid by the city in the judgment. And the judges told them, okay, fine. The interest is going. So again, the taxpayers are taking it on. That's why I say it's not the city. The taxpayers are taking it on the chin because that money has not been paid, and they will now have to pony it up. 617 617-282-0685 617-282-0685. You're listening at the Roundtable with Memo. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Carl.
Okay. What do you think about kind of like an institutional qualified immunity where, Massachusetts bump says $40 million. Mm-hmm. Now the city of Boston, well, it's still, no, you can't do it because it's still the same source of money. Right. I was just thinking, like, what if now it said, okay, BPD, this is your screw up. This is coming out of your budget. Right. But it doesn't matter because their budget is still, the city tax money.
Right. So if I hear you saying that, okay, every city and town that is still in the civil service that has administered this exam, whatever the state has to pay out should be deducted from their money coming back to them from the state.
Right. Right.
I think it's a fair. You caused the problem, you pay for it. Right. You broke it, you fix it. No,
exactly. Which would also then, tick people off enough to make them pay attention to it. What? Mm-hmm. What's going on there? Huh? No, we just signed up for that. Yeah. And it causes awareness. The next question is, so now that this is done, mm-hmm. there is nowhere in Massachusetts that uses the hair test, and I know Boston is one of the few. Who else still uses civil service exam?
I don't know all of the places, but I know like most of the small cities and towns have gotten away from it quite some time ago.
Right. Do you know anybody who's still on it?
To my knowledge, I'm not aware. Let me give you a quick fact here. I was defending a black officer in Sharon that they had, who was there at the time, I believe, was still part of the civil service test. He took it and he actually topped the list. And it was 3 other white officers who were up for promotion as well. And the chief at the time challenged the test. He said there was no way this test could be right. And he wanted to have another test because the only person that passed the test was the black officer.
Oh, right. And of course he cheated.
Something didn't go right. Something didn't go right. And I mean,
these are not the results we wanted.
Right. I had the same situation in Foxborough with another black officer who scored well, and 3 of the white officers were promoted with lower scores than her. And then they tried to say, well, it's based on seniority. It's like, whoa, stop the presses here. Once your score is compiled, you don't get a second bite at the apple. You don't get to say you're going to take care of your friends because they've been on long enough. That's not how it works. So you see, even with it in place, they want to circumvent the system to make it work better for some and not others.
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
I'm just thinking that this really, because this is a strong case and really should establish precedent.
It will.
That's what I mean. So that should, anybody who's suffering because of this should now say, well, look at what happened here. And any any institution that's still using it should see this as cautionary.
Right.
Like, oh, we better get our act together. We might want to rethink this.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Right, but also I think that anyone that thinks that that organizations such as MAMLEO are still not necessary, I think more so now with the climate in this country, they're wrong. Because some people, I remember even Willie MAMLEO, now that he was a commissioner, MAMLEO was all, we didn't need MAMLEO. He was going to take care of all the wrongs that were going on. And I still started seeing it coming. Matter of fact, in some ways, they felt that gave him cover because I wouldn't challenge him. And I told folks the day, it was August 6th, I remember I was at the church when Commissioner Gross was installed as the police commissioner. And I said to folks, I was still president of MAMLEO. Today we celebrate him being the first. Tomorrow he is just the commissioner to me. And that's how I looked at it. I said, one, it's not fair to him if I say, oh, he's black, I'm not going to hold him accountable. I would be a hypocrite. He's a policymaker now. So he gets the same treatment as Evans and Davis and any other commissioner that I've had to go against when I feel that our members were being treated unfairly. Full stop. It's not about what he looked like. It's about your policies and your practices. If they don't work for everyone, then we have to go after you. We can't have an unfair. And like I said, when you look at this whole Trump thing, it's saying, hey, he's exempt from the same accountability that others. No, we don't have kings and queens in this country.
Now, somebody asked on this group I'm on last night. We were talking on Zoom, and they said if he goes to jail, does he still have Secret Service protection? And I was like, I don't think that works because if he goes to jail, it's a secure environment already.
That's right.
I mean, yeah, he's. It ain't like he's going to be in general population. I don't know what these people are thinking.
Right.
He's going to be mopping floors and working on the commissary line. No, he's going to be taken care of like R. Kelly or something.
Right.
Well,
I think I'm sure there may be some type of house arrest where he'll be on some ankle bracelet or something, and he'll be down in Mar-a-Lago. It's a real tough prison that it would be. But I mean, just because of the risk, that he might not be in population, and I can.
Well, for this one is the state charge.
Right.
So, out of all of them, although this is very sexy and tantalizing, this ain't the big one here.
No.
It's them other ones just waiting out on the wings. He got some more charges and cases pending, and if those go through, he's gonna be in a whole world of trouble.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Jamal, stand by for a second. We're going to take a quick break. And you're listening to At the Round Table with the Family. We're going to take a quick break. Jamal, stand by. If you say call us, the call-in number here is 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back.